each other before they became a couple. I actually met Whitney during our first week of medical school. It just so happened that we were placed in the same anatomy dissection group. And despite that shocking experience, we got to know each other somewhat. I think if you'd asked me at that time to describe Whitney, I would have said something like, oh yeah, she's that pretty girl that was a diver in college, sometimes kind of loud, and whose laugh you can hear across the room. But there's so much more to Whitney than that, and I've really enjoyed getting to know her, particularly after Rob and her started dating. So now on to Rob. Rob and I basically became friends back when we were 9 years old, 3rd grade. I got word at my class in Glendale Elementary that we would have this kid transferring over from the Catholic school across town. And I didn't ask at the time, but I always kind of wondered about the process there, or how that came to be. I don't know if he was encouraged to leave, or cussed in front of a nun, or what.
Sword for another night.
Nonetheless, he joined our class, and I'm so glad he did, because we became best friends almost instantly. We found out that we had a lot in common, not the least of which we were blessed with a total of 5 sisters between the 2 of us. We wouldn't trade them for anything. But in order to get a break from that environment, we would meet up, ride bikes. Our mom used bikes around the neighborhoods. We found out we lived in neighborhoods right next to each other. Play tennis, go to the beach, all the things that little boys growing up love doing. So then we progressed through middle school and high school. Rob and I kind of pursued different things. He got really into cross country. I played football, but we always kept in touch. And then towards the latter part of high school, kind of started realizing what roads we were going to take. Rob was pretty committed to pursuing military education, and I knew I wanted to be a doctor. And so we went along those separate paths. Kept in touch fairly often. Sometimes we'd go a month or 2 without speaking, but every time we reconnected, it felt like we had just spoken last week. And I know Rob had a huge impact on my development, my college education, med school, just challenging myself and always really inspiring me to reach for the next big goal and to stick with it. So I thank you for that. Growing up, we also played competitive tennis. Not so competitive anymore, but we're still competitive, just not at tennis. But we grew up playing tennis. Rob was like state ranked. I think I was like town acknowledged or something. But we played in some local tournaments. Sometimes we played head to head. Rob would win probably 2/3 of the time. What I remember most about that experience is that some of the time I would win the first set. It was really difficult to close Rob out. He had a motor. He had just a perseverance about him that was, just really hard to close out. So, that's something that has stuck with him throughout his entire life. And he convinced Whitney to marry him. So, it's a pretty good accomplishment. But it's been inspiring to all of us who've been able to witness it. So, then we followed each other along the way, attending all the major things, my undergrad graduation, Rob's West Point graduation, Sears School, Ranger School. And for a time, I've kind of wondered, whether Rob and I were just kind of destined to be bachelors, and maybe, we'd hang out, grab a bachelor pad or something. Because, Rob's military exposure, I guess, kind of fostered a certain, I guess I'll say,
You're listening.
A certain amount of antics, and I'd say it was a little rough around the edges at times. I'll just give you one story to kind of paint the picture. Rob was in Costa Rica with his brother-in-law. I know some of you have heard this, so I have to share it. And they were out at a bar, and Rob, saw some female that he wanted to holler at. So, he went over there and quickly realized that
He had no game.
Quickly realized that they didn't really really speak the same language. So Rob was, trying to get on her level and, kind of impress her. So he dropped the following line.
Oh, good.
Te gusta mi, me gusta tu.
That was it.
I don't think a whole lot else happened after that.
I went home alone.
It was worth a try. So there was some comedy in there. But then Rob met Whitney. And how it happened is that I had just gone to Rob's Ranger School graduation. He was a few days out of Ranger School, which is like 8 weeks where I think you're mostly out in the wilderness and kind of fighting for your survival and doing other really manly things. So he came back into civilization and came to Gainesville, Florida, and we were playing in a softball game that night, and Whitney was supporting our men's med school softball team. She always did. And she had just come from the gym. I think she was wearing like a sweatshirt and some shorts, nothing like too crazy. And Rob was there as well. It was the last night in town. And the game was over. Rob and I were driving away. And all of a sudden Rob was like, "Hey, who's that girl in the stands there?" I was like, "Oh, you're talking about Whitney." And he was like, "Yeah." It's like, I guess I'll rephrase. Something like, "Is anyone dating that girl?" And I was like, "Well, not that I know of at the moment." "Why? What are you thinking?" It's like, "She's pretty cute. Big personality." So we went to a swamp after that night, one of the Gainesville staples. Rob and Whitney were both there. Patty was there, a few other friends. I think I was like pitching Rob some softballs, like, "Hey, don't you like jump out of planes and stuff? That's pretty cool." So they got to know each other a little bit that night. Get Whitney more. And he eventually got her number, and was texting her that night, trying to meet up again, but she had a test the next day, so it couldn't happen then. So the next day, Rob had to drive back to North Carolina, and they were talking back and forth. Again, the perseverance theme comes through. Rob kept trying. So they were talking back and forth, and at some point, Rob dropped the line of, "Just driving through the mountains. Only thing I'm missing is a pretty brunette by my side." And then Whitney reminded him at that point that I consider myself more of a blonde, actually. Nice try. But they kept talking, and pretty soon they were dating, and it was pretty evident that they complemented each other very well. They both were very passionate about what they were involved with. They loved their families a lot. They were committed. Both were a bit goofy at times, which was fun.
At times.
Well, Rob and Whitney had been through a lot, starting out as a long-distance relationship, dealing with Rob being overseas in Afghanistan multiple times, the passing of Whitney's mother, Sherry Stern. But they always persevere. They always come out stronger. And they have really an impressive drive to stay positive. They've set themselves up for a wonderful future, Whitney being trained at UNC for pediatrics, and Rob going through business school at Duke. Rob, you'll always be the brother I never had. Between the Ron White and Chris Rock jokes, you've had a way of